everybody, Ben Woodruff here with another Falconry video. I'm excited about this video today because it's one that is crucial to have success in the sport of falconry. Before I jump into the subject though, if you haven't already, it would really help me if you hit subscribe. Helps me build this channel and keep it up and going. Now, the subject we're going over today is the role of food and the psychology behind the role of food, which you might be like, oh, that's not exciting. I hear you, but especially if you're new to this sport, or maybe if you're getting into it and you haven't thought about this before, this is not a video on weight management, which is another skill set and important part of falconry to have success. This is not about that. This is about specifically the role of food and understanding the psychology. This is almost never talked about. One of the very first, remember, this is not a falconry YouTube channel. This just started off as me just making some random videos, and a few of them were falconry. One of the earliest videos I did was on this subject, and I made a short little 4-minute video with terribly edited with music playing the whole time in the background. And nobody ever digs that deep into the falconry playlist on here, and so it's such a vital topic to really having success and understanding your bird and to preventing aggression, to having success in the field, these kind of things, that I'm like, you know what, I need to remake this and go into more depth and shoot it with a little better production value so it's not so obnoxious. And so getting into this subject, the psychology behind food. Remember, we're mammals with highly, evolved brains, although sometimes we question that, right? But with some people usually, but especially on the freeway. But the psychology that we have, we're thinkers, we're creative thinkers, and we have we have killed our way to relatively the top of the food chain in most parts of the world. And as such, we have opinions about our food. Remember, we can store food. We're agrarian. We can say, oh, I'm going to, instead of out hunting, I've got a herd of cattle or a herd of goats that I can eat as needed. And I can refrigerate food. I can freeze food. I can grow crops that can be dried and stored for years at a time. So there is food available. And we can have opinion there. And we have these networks where we're shipping food around the world. Our very thinking, at least in my area, I live in the United States, in Utah, and the way people in my area approach the subject of food is radically different than even 2 or 3 generations ago. 2 or 3 generations ago, people weren't shipping food from the other side of the world. It was like, hey, if I want to we're having chicken on Sunday, I got to go out and kill the chicken and pluck it and cook it and dress it and season it, and that's the chicken, right? It was very cut and dry. It's very direct, even agrarian. But now we're not only agrarian, we have this big old network. So again, our thinking is different. It can be hard to understand the perspective of a raptor. Now, when we have other animals that we work with, take a dog. Dog is a prime example. People all over the world keep dogs and have for over 10,000 years. Dogs are omnivores like us. Dogs have been selectively bred like us. They're hunters, they're pack animals. So there's a lot we have in common with them. And they've side by side been with us on this journey from hunter-gatherer into agrarian, grocery store world, okay? But when we feed a dog, you're like, all right, here's your dog food dish. You pour some dog food. There's your food. You eat it. That's all our thinking. And you might have rewards. Oh, my dog really loves this or that. And so I'm going to train my dog to do certain behaviors, whether it's a trained hunting dog that's going to point or retrieve, or whether it's just, hey, I'm going to do fun tricks and goofy things with my dog that are really fun behaviors to showcase. You're like, good dog, here's your treat. Here's your reward. Oh, and the dog, oh boy. And they're just like, it's a different way of thinking. You cannot have that view going into falconry. Or same thing, if you're going to be an effective wildlife educator too, where you're flying your bird, it's the same thing. It's not just falconry specific. If you are going to be working with raptors, now think about them in the wild. You have to understand their mentality. In the wild, an adult raptor that is not under the care of its parents, relatively speaking, every day of its life, it must hunt and successfully kill in order to continue to live. Now, I hesitated there because I'm like, oh yeah, well, some species might, I gorged on a roadkill, or I ate such a big meal yesterday that the next day after you don't necessarily have to eat. So I get there's some gaps with predators because predators are eating such nutrient-rich food. If they get a big kill, they'll store some of that in fat and, whatever, and last a few days. Or heck, it might even be in their crop and they're like, okay, I passed part of that, now the next day I pass the rest. I get that. But the principle is constantly having to hunt and kill. We understand that principle. We don't have to do that in falconry. We have food, right? We have food available. So even if the bird doesn't catch something, it can still eat. If your bird is molting, you can just be like, you know what? Molting, I wanted to molt in a new set of feathers as fast as possible. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just let the bird take the summer off. I'm going to stuff him silly, just let him have the free run of the place and grow new feathers and not worry about flying or hunting. You can do that in falconry, but that's not what happens in the wild. And more importantly, here is the principle to remember. For raptors in the wild, everybody wants to kill you and or steal your food except for your parent and your mate. And your parent will steal your food, once you're grown up in the nest and you become competition. So the only person you can fully trust in theory is your mate. And that's, you think about, say you're a golden eagle, you got a mate. Think of all the other golden eagles and all the other raptors out there that are not your mate. All of them. A whole world of animals that want to fight you or kill you, steal your food. Food is not safe. Food is not yours in nature until it's in your stomach. And even then, you could still be killed, right? So that's the rule, is food is something to fight for. Food is stolen from other. Birds will steal food from each other. Food is something to defend violently, to be aggressive over. And this is vital to understand. This is vital with how you handle food. You cannot afford to, my bird has to eat every day. Here's some food. Eat your food. Do it. That's not what it is. Food is not a reward. Food is not simply just sustenance. Food in the raptorial world is social bonding. Okay? So remember that. Not just having food, but I already mentioned, raptors are aggressive over their food. But food is social bonding. Any exchange between two life forms, bird sharing with a bird, but of course you as a human, right, is an act of social bonding. This is vital to know and vital to understand. A dog wouldn't be that way. A dog might hate your guts out. And if you're like, it's scared at you, it's mad at you, it's barking at you. But a lot of dogs, even if you're a stranger, if you're like, okay, well, here's a steak, they might be like, oh, and they'll come over to you and they'll sneak up and take it and then, and still be, even if they're still mad at you, maybe they'll suddenly be your friend. But it's just like, food is good. Raptors are not that way. Raptors are not just going to take food from you just because they're hungry or need a meal. Because that act of taking food, the act of accepting food from another, those are acts of extreme social bonding. And that is where we can get into trouble and get into aggression. If you watch my videos, you've probably seen some about raising imprint birds, raising a bird from the time they are a young age, right? Now, in the nest, there is natural aggression towards the food. There's like, okay, I got a mantle over it. Why? Well, one of the biggest reasons is because your siblings, even in the nest, will try to take food from you. It's a competition. It's survival of the fittest. If you're a few days older, you're going to be like, hey, I'm gonna be at the edge of the nest waiting, and my siblings back here are going to have to fight, and maybe we're squabbling over food. So very early from the beginning, young raptors know in the nest that you have to mantle, cover, use your wings and your tail, flatten yourself, basically lay down on your food, be aggressive over it. But then they also learn to be aggressive towards food. Now, food does not fly around in the form of food, okay? So if I just here's some meat, here's some prepared, dead, thawed, plucked, whatever, de-haired food that a bird is going to eat. In that form, it does not just fly around or scurry around on the ground, okay? they have to learn to hunt. So 2 things of aggression I'm talking about from the young age. The first is you must be aggressive over your food, but then comes aggressive towards your food. Aggressive over, remember, is keep your siblings off of you. My food, I'm eating it. No, I'm trying to grow. Aggression towards your food is mom and dad start coming in, and it's typically not plucked or all the way, right? Mom and dad come to the nest, and here's this dead whatever. Here's a dead ground squirrel, okay? Here's a dead robin, a dead pigeon, and they're lunging towards it. But there's, if you're the baby, then there's 3 objects, 3 beings in this equation. One of them's dead. Is you, your parent, and the prey. The parent is coming with the prey. You have now aggression towards food, not just over it. You are trying to get the food, and that is the beginnings of a baby learning, of an IS learning how to hunt. I've said this in other videos. Remember that if that remains, they will attack the parents. And so at a certain age, when the birds are branching and hopping around the tree, hopping around the cliff face, whatever species it may be, most raptors will start to bring hampered prey that they've injured, and they're flying up towards the nest and calling to the babies, and the babies are sitting there. They don't go all the way to the nest. The babies start flying towards you. The parent drops the prey, and the baby goes after and catches this partially wounded animal. Even if it is dead, they will bring and drop, so that the babies have to catch it. And the idea is to separate that visual connection between the parent and the food. Because otherwise, if you keep that, then the babies will keep and will start chasing after the parents. And that's not how hunting works. This is important to understand. View it through this lens if you're raising a young bird. Because if you are raising them and you never leave, because at some point the parents leave and the babies are like, I started moving my aggression towards prey item that mom and dad were dropping. Now mom and dad are gone. Okay, I never have the visual of mom or dad ever again. What's the visual I do have? Well, they brought ground squirrels, they brought pigeons, they brought quail, they brought robins. So now you start flying out hungry, and you're looking for 2 icons. You're looking for the sound and visual of mom and dad, and the sound and visual of the hampered animals that mom and dad brought. Okay, mom and dad are never going to appear. So there's only one thing to direct that aggression, that food aggression towards. So remember, aggression in raptors is not bad. It is good. It just has to be directed towards the right image, the right visual, the right icon. It needs to be directed towards prey. Aggression towards you is very bad. So this is not a video about how to imprint a bird. This is, again, just talking about the psychology and understanding the role of food. And that's the first one I want to talk about, is in regards to raising a young bird. So you must remember, and watch some of my other videos on imprints. There's great books out there on properly imprinting a bird. If there is too much food association, especially with accipiters and a lot of eagle species as well, but if you are raising a young bird and there is too much food association with you in a parental way, you're going to get attacked and they're going to be nonstop vocal. So the trick is to find ways, and there are many, to have you raise them, but have them properly directing their aggression towards prey and not towards you as a parent. So that you're not viewed, so that you are a social part of their life, not a food-related part of their life, okay? But just remember that first principle when it comes to raising them from a young bird. But any bird of any age, remember, food is still something to be aggressive over, to mantle over. And so this is something you always must understand. When you're first training a bird and you're teaching them to eat food, you're handing them food, then you're having them eat off the fist, hop to the fist, fly to the fist. These steps along the way represent very large things. When you are holding a bird on the fist and the food is there and you put it there, they bend their head down. They are exposing the back of their head and their neck, which is one of the most vulnerable positions that bird can be in. But more importantly, they are choosing to accept food from you, which is an act of social bonding. Okay, it's not just a reward and it's not just food. So knowing that, you have to remember really the quickest way to establish trust with a raptor, just in general, is feeding off the fist. Okay, here's a glove, here's me, I'm holding you a lot, I'm trying to build as much social time as possible with you sitting on the fist, but I'm also going to have you eat off the fist. It's the quickest way to build trust, to build bond. Because if a raptor can trust you in matters of food, it can trust you with its life literally. They understand that very core, simple principle. However, you can also mess yourself up really bad because, remember, food is social bonding, but food is also something to be aggressive over, right? So I've done videos just specifically on the pros and cons of feeding off the fist. But any bird, whether it's an imprint, a passage bird, an adult bird, a rehab bird that you're training, whatever the situation may be, any bird that is fed too much off of the glove is going to eventually have some level of aggression. And the reason why is because over time, if you're feeding, now this might be feeding them too often off the fist. This might be feeding them too big of meals off the fist. Or it might just be, hey, it's an imprint that you've made a food imprint instead of a social imprint, and they're just, then what happens is the bird will begin to mantle over the fist. And you might be like, what's going on? In the early stages, I was having this birdie off the fist, and it built trust so quickly. And now the bird's freaking out, mantling, and just being super aggressive. And when I get anywhere near, it's reaching out and grabbing my hand and attacking my other hand. Even when the meal's gone, it's still mantling over. What's going on? Why is it doing this? Understand the role of food. Food is something to be aggressive over as well as towards. You have both of those in this situation. A bird that is fed too much on the glove suddenly becomes the icon to kill. So even if you're providing, hey, here's food there, them hopping on it, flying, landing, whatever, is an act of kill. They have killed your glove. Your glove is the animal, the prey. And since now they have killed the prey, they should mantle over it. And they should be defensive of anyone who tries to take that away or approach in any way. Now, when a bird's on the ground isn't moving. You catch something, you're sitting on the ground, you're mantling. You can read your bird and say, okay, how close, what point should I approach? Is the bird have 1 foot on and 1 foot off and mantling and looks like it's going to bail? Okay, I need to wait. Is it, got both feet on, inner claws, and it's eating? Okay, maybe I can approach closer. You can understand those principles step by step. When they're doing that on your glove, you're moving around. Even the slightest movements represent instability, represent the whole world rocking, okay? That's fine normally when you're walking around, but not when they are being aggressive over what they view as a kill, okay? So that is something you have to understand. A bird that is being overly aggressive and overly mantling on the fist has started to view the glove as not only something to be aggressive over, but also towards. So your glove has become prey. Your glove has become food to mantle over, and it has become territory. So what you do with that is you have to, if you understand that principle, that's something that can be fixed by turning the glove into a perch. Say, hey, I'm not going to feed this bird off the fist. I'm going to put the food elsewhere. I'm going to put it on the lure. I'm going to put it on the ground. There's different ways to approach it. But the most important thing to understand about that is turn that into a perch. And with some birds that are extreme, you may have to use an entirely different colored glove as part of that process and say, hey, I want them to always view this as nothing more than that. If you're trying to fix that problem and you have a bird that's being super aggressive, you get a different glove. You're not feeding them on the fist. You're feeding them elsewhere. Only feed them on the ground. Only feed them on a lure. You're doing all that, and they're still being sticky-footed. Look through my falconry playlist. I have a video on specifically how to address that. A bird that isn't necessarily aggressive, but they are still being really sticky-footed when they leave the glove. They're kind of dragging, whether they're leaving to go land on a perch or leaving to go after prey. They're like dragging your glove with you. I have a video that I already did on that. But again, the principle is there's part of their brain that is still viewing this as prey or a kill. You don't want that, okay? Accipiters, in my opinion, are... People say they're really aggressive. I think I'd almost view it as they're the least forgiving. If you want to put it like in human terms. You might have a room full of people that are all thinking the same thought of like, oh boy, this service is really bad at this restaurant. This server is doing a really, bad job at this or that. And maybe you're polite, but in your head you're thinking it. Maybe maybe that's a falcon. Okay, they're like, and maybe like you have a red-tailed hawk. That's the person who's like polite, but then once the server leaves, they're like, oh, geez, whoa, wow, right? Talking to each other across the table. And the goshawks and the Cooper's hawks are the ones that are just like, your service is terrible. I'm letting you know that. They're all thinking it, okay, but it's the accipiters usually that manifest in that way. What I mean by that is just you have to understand that accipiters don't hide. They don't forgive easily. They hold grudges more, and it's harder. They don't hide the problems well. So that's bad, but that's also good. You could be making mistakes with your red-tailed hawk or with your kestrel or with your peregrine falcon and not even realize it. You're just like, oh, they're just a little crotchety today. They're kind of angry on the kill and we're overly mantling or whatever, and you just kind of deal with it. A goshawk that is mad at you and leaves the glove for your face, you can't ignore that. You're like, whoa, something's going on. What's going on? But again, you always have to understand the role of food. And always remember, food is the language of trust with raptors, but it is also how is the object that you should be aggressive over and aggressive towards. Those three things, you have to remember those three things. Food is the language of trust and social bonding. Food is also the item to be aggressive over and the item to be aggressive towards. So there are a million different approaches out there. Based off of the species, based on what's the tradition in your area, based off of the individual bird. Is it an imprint? Is it a passage? Is it an old hand-me-down bird from a breeding project that you're going to try to fly? Whatever it may be. Of course, there's all different situations. But if you understand these principles, you can help more easily dictate and govern your problem solving, your troubleshooting of problems. For example, with all my accipiters, most of my falcons, all of my accipiters, and any eagle I ever fly, once I get past the initial feeding off the fist, almost entirely the fist is now just a perch, and I will never use food on it again, unless they start to exhibit fear on a kill. Then I'm like, you know what? For 2 days, I'm going to let them eat off the fist and kind of rebuild that bond so they see me that way as somebody who's not going to take their food, okay? But then what I do is I use the lure, I put food on the lure, come to the lure, and once they establish that, then I have them come to an empty lure, and they're like, where's the food? And I dangle the food over here, drop it, and they jump off the lure. They're eating the food. I take away the lure, and when they're done eating, they're like, there's nothing on the ground to mantle over. There's no physical, tangible object to show aggression towards. And then I kneel down, put my glove up with no food, and they're like, okay, that's the perch. And when I ride on the perch, we find food. So, okay, they hop on, and they're not aggressive. And that's my normal way with hawks and with hawks and with eagles. With falcons, personally, usually what I do is once they're on a kill, is I will trade off for a tidbit on the glove. And they might mantle a little, but big open country, if they caught smaller prey like a partridge or a pigeon or quail, something that they can carry, they're so afraid and vulnerable in open country of eagles and other bigger falcons that it's like, I want to, as quickly as I possibly can, get them safely secured. And so if they're kind of sketchy and are like more likely to bolt, then yeah, I might put down the lure and then have them jump from the lure to the fist, or I might just have them hop right to the fist for some food. But again, you have to read your bird. You have to know, talk to your sponsor or whoever your mentor is, the falconers in your area, get their understanding of the species and the style of hunting. But no matter what, the principle is always the same. If you understand those three things, that Food is the language of trust and is social bonding, not a reward. If you understand that food is something to be aggressive over and aggressive towards, remember those three things. They're key. And you're going to have a lot of success if you understand that and if you always remember that. It's really easy to screw that up when it comes to little, quote unquote rewards. Oh, you got a piece of meat on the lure. See? Oh, and you got it again. Come again. Oh, well, okay, all right. Well, it's really easy to start that incorrect mammal thinking of like a dog and saying, oh, it's like a dog. See? Oh, I flew my bird 20 times to the fist. Whoop, we're trading. Look at this. You get a little reward each time. Yeah, okay, you can still technically classify it as a reward, but please view it through a more accurate lens that like, okay, what are they doing each time they're landing? You will see if you have 50 grams of food and you cut it up into 50 1-gram pieces versus 5 10-gram pieces, the bird is going to be more aggressive on your glove the bigger that piece of meat is on the glove. And it's more likely to think, oh, there's more food here. And it will snap into the mode of, I need to be aggressive. I need to defend this glove. Where if it's just like, whoop, and it's like, oh, and I ate it. Sometimes you need to have a whopping huge piece of food there to incentivize, which is technically a reward. But again, that's not the principle. Don't view it as a reward. A bigger reward is better. No, a bigger reward will trigger more aggression. It will also trigger more value. So the bigger a piece of meat, the bigger a reward you put on your glove, a lure, whatever, the more incentive there is to pursue that. But again, to also show aggression. So plan accordingly. Again, I think if you follow those 3 principles and understand them and always have it just like your magic lens through which you view what you're doing with your bird, you're going to make a lot of much wiser decisions that will lead to success in the field, that will lead to success without aggression, and will allow you to fix aggressive problems when they arise. Is that, what's going on with my bird? Ask yourself, how are they viewing food? How are they viewing your relationship? Are they aggressive because they have come to view you as somebody who steals a kill? Okay, then adjust accordingly. Or are they showing aggressive on the ground because they are viewing whatever is there as an object to be extremely protective of? Okay, that's a different approach. Those are two, you can have the same behavior mean 2 completely different things. But again, run it through those 3 principles, troubleshoot it, and you will do great. So I hope that it helps you in your falconry pursuits and your endeavors to train raptors, just with having a reminder of that, understanding the principles of food and the psychology behind the role that food plays, both for wild raptors as well as how they interact with us. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe. Let me know down in the comments any other questions you have and other videos you'd like me to make in the coming months. And as always, happy hawking.